Hello and welcome to Skills to Pay the Bills in today's segment of JustAskFreeman.com. Sitting next to me is my lovely wife and co-host, Carolyn Owen. And our focus today is teaching our kids about money and how to manage it. According to Forbes.com, more than 9 out of 10 parents believe it's important for students to learn about personal finance in school. And 3 out of 4 think there should be a finance requirement in order to graduate from high school. However, 72% of parents express reluctance when it comes to teaching about finance at home. Now, Carol and I are going to do our best to demystify talking about finances with your kids. So, Carolyn, let's get started. I do want to make a comment. You can't necessarily count on school programs to teach your kids about the value of money. You know, kids look at us. We're the parents.
Yes.
They look at our values and our money habits. And as parents, we do a real good job of teaching our kids. That is, we're teachers. Teach, and teach our children sound money habits when they're young. And the likelihood is that they avoid money traps, and they avoid costly mistakes during their retirement, or planning for their retirement journey. Something else I want to say too: the how, what, and when to teach your kids about money are personal decisions. And this is determined by the values of the parents. So hopefully today on this show, we'll be able to provide some tips and suggestions that will follow us throughout the show and make your job, our viewers' job, a little bit easier. Yes. So let's get started and talk about when we should introduce personal finances and economics to our children.
You know, that's a question that I've often been asked. I'm sure you have too. When is the best time to start teaching your children about money?
Exactly.
And I'd say it's never too early.
Never too early.
Because if you don't teach them, there's an old quote I'm sure anybody in baby boomers age heard. Otherwise, the kids will think money grows on trees.
Exactly. Now, let me make a comment. Now, Forbes.com said that 90% of parents would prefer that the school system educate your kids when it comes to personal finances and economics. Well, teachers have a big job. They have a tremendous responsibility as it is. They're teaching anywhere between 100 and 150 kids per day. Now, what I've noticed too is that in the lower grades, say kindergarten through the 2nd and 3rd grade, there are images that are shown, the teachers provide that, of various coins. You have the 50-cent piece, the quarter, the dime, the nickel, and so on. And some of the teachers provide those, with those images and with real coins, the kids will learn the feel of the coin, the value of the coins. Good math applications are applied. For example, they have word problems. If you have 2 dimes and a nickel, which is equivalent to a case quarter, and then they correlate the coins with currency. Now, I think that's a start, but again, it goes back to the values and our spending habits and what we do as parents. Exactly. Because I don't believe that most teachers can teach in detail both personal finances and learning in economics. You can learn a lot of math along the way too. Yes. But even young children can understand the concept of money, and that's exchanging a sum of money for something else.
Exactly. So it's more of a comprehension level as opposed to an age level that we're talking about.
Exactly. And I think you should consider giving children an allowance beginning in elementary school.
Okay.
Now, a good example of that, let's take piggy banks. We could take 3 piggy banks, label them, savings, all right, sharing, all right, and spending. We could take 3 jars and label them for the elementary kids.
Yes.
And something else I want to share with our viewing audience is to teach them how to allocate money. When they get an allowance or they receive funds from doing a little bit of, or a part-time job or whatever, we've used the ratio, or I should say the percentages, pretty successfully. We've told our own children and taught them and our grandchildren, take and pay yourself first. 20%
Yes.
and that's if you have $100, 20% goes toward your savings. Pay yourself first. The other percentage is 10% for sharing or contributing to church or some other charity. And you have $70 left. So the ratio, or I should say the percentage on allocating money is 20% for savings, 10% for giving, and then you have the balance for spending. Something else too. We could teach and show our kids how to save toward a goal.
Yes.
It might take X number of dollars over an extended period of time to get that toy or get that video or to save for a device. You know, kids like, I'm gonna mention this again on the show, iPhones and iPads. They can save a certain amount of their allowance each month and add up to the amount needed to buy that toy. And they can do it in a certain number of months. Something else I want to share too. Again, the responsibility is on you, the parent. Be a good example.
Exactly. One of the most important things you can do is be a good role model, because the children can see how you, how financially responsible you are, and they can learn and follow from your example.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then you have your teachable moments, such as when you're going to when you're going shopping, going to the grocery store. The kids can help you with making out the budget, and they can accompany you there. And once they're there, they can learn that you follow the list, because money is finite. So whatever's on that list is what you get. If it's not on the list, you don't get it. That helps them to learn to manage money. And then when they start shopping, you can also teach them about shopping for sales, for comparison shopping, for brand names, and so forth. I was thinking about our grandson, Sean.
Right.
When he became old enough to start shopping by himself, the first time he did, he went to brand names.
Exactly.
Had a few items, but spent a whole lot of money.
Exactly.
But he learned from that. So that was what was most important.
Well, I'm glad that we did teach our grandchildren, and we taught our children how to look for the best deals. And, you know, a good example, we took our youngest grandson to a grocery store, and you did, it was a teachable moment. You say, well, each can of these peaches are 39 cents, but the sale price was $3 for $1. So you ask Kobe, you say, well, what is the price of each can if we got 3 for $1? And he got it right. See, teachable moments. Something else, involve your kids in the family budget. You know, show them the monthly bills. Let them see how you spend, or what's in the budget to spend for your mortgage, your car notes, your utilities, credit card payments, and then you can explain that portion of the budget that is used for those expenditures, and you can also share with your children the amount of money that you save and contribute to charity. Something else I wanted to share with you is teach them firsthand about the family cost of living and the process of making and sticking to a budget. Now, Carolyn, what do you think about the need versus the want? Would you mind distinguishing the difference between the two when it comes to relevant to children, participation in their personal finance?
You know, that is so important, to have those appropriate age-based discussions and help the child look at it and see, is this a need or is there a want? Why do you need it? Why do you want it? And so that helps them to learn how to prioritize their spending in the budget.
Now, that brings up the topic of interest. This is a very, very important topic. Need to learn and teach the power of interest and how money works and how interest impacts your savings.
Yes, because you can teach the children the difference between good interest, like you get when, from savings.
Exactly.
And what we'll call bad interest when you are late in paying your credit cards, or whether you pay that late fee and so forth. So therefore they can learn the difference.
Exactly. Here's something I want to add to that too. Take your child to the bank or credit union and open a savings account. Then we can teach them how to calculate interest, and they could see the value of their their savings increase and over time. And I refer to it as free money. Now, what was interesting, I know in high school, when Sean was in high school, now our grandson is in high school and now he's in college. I remember we opened a savings account for him early on. Now, just before he got out of high school, he says, well, I'm not too pleased with the interest that I got from this bank. Granddad, I want to learn more about mutual funds and stocks. And so, as a result of that, we're teaching him now how to invest. So he'll be fiscally responsible as he matures. I put it that way. Also require that your kids save a certain percentage of their allowance in birthday money. Review the monthly statements with them, and pointing out how interest has increased the value of their account. This is great. I've got to share this.
Okay.
When children meet their savings goals, consider matching their savings. I was talking to a young fella, and I talked about the fact that, you know, you should save money. And what are your parents doing about, are they rewarding you for saving money? Well, we got that great idea of matching the funds for our own children and grandchildren. Let's say, for example, if the youngest grand saves $10, we give him $1. That's 10%. That's free money. And see, he's beginning to understand, folks, that if you match his savings, it can also correlate with the real world. And I just want to get off on a tangent just a little bit. The real world. There's single-digit companies today that offer a defined pension program. Over the last 25 to 30 years plus, we, as employees, were thrust into contributing to our own employer-sponsored retirement accounts. And many of the private sector, or I should say the private sector as well as the public sector, offered matching funds. And I've talked about that in many seminars and various public venues discussing matching and how that's free money. Well, here we have our children. We can implement that and also prepare them for retirement as well.
Yes.
Because most likely, they're going to have to contribute dollars to their own retirement. And so the matching process, I think, is a great tip for parents to reward their kids for just undertaking the savings element of those three components we talked about: spending, paying yourself. We're going to reiterate that again, and then sharing. Next, we're going to take a short station break. We'll be right back after these important announcements.
Minds can achieve anything. We make sure they get to college. Federal student aid provides more than $150 billion in grants, loans, and work-study funds to make college possible for anyone with the mind to get there. Because if given the chance, minds will do great things. Federal Student Aid, proud sponsor of the American Mind. Learn more about money for college at studentaid.gov.
Thank you for staying tuned to JustAskFreeman.com. Our topic today focuses on teaching our kids all about money and how to manage it. Carolyn, in our last segment, I wanted to get to this important part of showing our kids credit card bills and then explain how important it is to pay them on time. You talked about bad interest. The bad interest would be charged if the balance isn't paid in full. And most of all, you can teach your children the wise use of credit. Now, you have to help them understand credit card debt. Your word is your bond. You pay your debts. But we have to make sure that we teach our kids that credit is it's a privilege. It's a privilege. Thank you for helping me with that. And not a right.
Yes.
Else they'll end up with financial handcuffs. Exactly. So teach the basics.
Yes.
Now, here's something I want to share too. You don't wait until your kids are in college. just to introduce them to the basics of the financial life. So what we have to do, give them latitude.
Exactly.
Let them make mistakes and learn from them. Now, usually what college kids do, and they're doing that today. I went to school too, to college, and here's what we do. Here's what our kids do today. They are interdependent, and some kids are independent. But if they aren't taught how money works, they're not taught how to save money. They're not taught to be fiscally responsible. Well, to get on campus, they buy expensive gadgets. They buy devices, iPhones, iPads, different technological devices. Kids love it. They love entertainment. Spring break, they'll travel. They're inundated with credit cards.
That's exactly it. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, a kid gets a credit card, or several of them. Maybe don't associate the fact there's debt there associated with that credit card. Now they max out the cards. Now, not only do they have school loans, they have credit card debt. Well, we as parents focus on fiscal responsibility early on, because once they hit the college scene and get out into the real world, all right, they don't want to bring bad habits when it comes to their personal finances and economics, all right? Now,
And something else you want to do with your high school students?
what is that?
At some point when they're in high school, you want to help them to open up a checking account with their own allowance money.
Exactly.
And what you do is, because that way you can help them to learn how to make deposits, how to write checks, and how to balance the checkbook.
Right.
Because you don't want them to have that unfortunate experience of the paying for overdraft fees.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you wanna
That's
help
very,
them with
very
that.
important, and to teach your financial discipline. You know, kids need boundaries.
Yes.
They really do. And the boundaries they learn comes from you, the parent. And the kids don't know. When they see something, they want it.
Yes.
But we have to discern the difference for them that, hey, look, you don't get everything you want when you want it. And setting and sticking to spending limits helps them learn this important lesson. Now, a question I have for you, Carolyn. I know that many parents, when their child reaches the age of 16, okay, what happens? They want a car, a big ticket item. Now, what do you do? What does how do we help kids that want big ticket items like automobiles?
Well, one thing, that's a great time for them to learn that money does not grow on trees. And they can do that by contributing a portion to paying the car or whatever. And they can do that by either summer jobs or after school jobs, whatever, so they can contribute to that purchase.
Oh, okay, that's cool. Now, something else I want to share too, Carolyn, is introducing your children to credit cards. Some folks do it, some parents do it too early. I think you have to be age appropriate in a way that is consistent with your beliefs when it comes to use of credit. Now, here's a tip. You can start a child, okay, with a secured credit card or debit card and see how well they manage that credit. See whether or not they read the statements. Well, and understand the statements. This is where the parent comes in. All right. Now, if they are fiscally responsible with that secured credit card, which is sort of like a credit card with training wheels, then they can step up to that secured credit card, which would have a credit limit, and they have learned from the unsecured credit card, where the credit limit was set by them based on the deposit into that debit card or unsecured credit card. Now they are on the path of making sure that they have excellent credit, because they may have to purchase big ticket items later on as they mature, homes, automobiles, etc. So that would be great practice as a stepping stone with unsecured credit cards. And then secured credit cards. It helps them in life later on. Next, we want to talk about investing and using real money. Now, I mentioned at the outset of this show that Sean was not too happy with his savings account, the interest earned.
Yes.
And he showed it to the statement to his younger brother, and that prompted him, well, my grandfather's an advisor. Well, what we can do is he can teach me how mutual funds work. And I think that's excellent. First, you move from your money market account. You go to the credit union, get one. Open a money market account or a savings account. Then look at the CD. All right, it matures in a certain time. And then you could have what we call reinvestment risk, but that'll be, the child will be able to see over time the maturity of money and how it matures with a certain vehicle. And then ease them into learning about mutual funds. Now, some parents have investment clubs for their kids. You can go online and check out the stock market games that are available on the internet. There are board games, I've seen them. So that's a good way to introduce your child, and it's got to be age appropriate. Now, some children are precocious and they understand, I've seen them at 9 or 10 understanding the stock market. Then I've seen those who are in high school and in college have no clue. So make sure they're age appropriate, and then bring them gradually from the savings account, then the money market account, then the CDs, and then they can go into mutual funds, and you could teach them how to invest. I think that is a fantastic way or step to becoming fiscally responsible. Now, allowances. Got to talk about allowances. Well, some parents feel strongly that allowance is the best way to teach children financial responsibility, and then other parents feel just the opposite. Okay.
That's true.
Now, if you decide to give your kids an allowance, Carol, I want you to share with our viewing audience some food for thought, some of the things that you would do, and so that a child would have an understanding of money, and are they old enough to count? See, math is the key. Would you talk about that a little bit on giving the children an allowance, and when should they start to receive an allowance?
Well, you don't give a child an allowance before they're too old, before they're not old enough to count,
Right.
or to understand something about money. So it's going to be the age appropriateness of your particular child. And then you also have to think of the whole purpose of the allowance is to teach your children how to balance the budget between sharing and saving and spending. Because what you want them to do is to share 10%, to save 20%, and then they have 70% for their spending,
Exactly.
so they can learn that at that young age.
Right.
And then you want to make it clear about the percentage that they have set aside for the giving and for the sharing.
Exactly.
And
Share one more train of thought with this when it comes to chores. This is key.
now that's something that's very questionable. People wonder, should a child be paid or get an allowance for doing chores? And there are different schools of thought. Now, one school of thought is that as the child is a member of the household,
Right.
that they should contribute by doing chores. But if they go beyond the call of duty, let's say they're washing your car, they're raking the leaves, they're washing the windows, they're doing something that you'd have to pay someone outside the home for, well then, if your child does it, why not pay them for that?
You know, we had to push a little bit to get the chores done in our household with our kids. I mean, really push, because they felt that they should get paid for doing the chores, like emptying the trash, or they don't do too many chores anyway. But the thing is, with the chores, you have to list those chores. We learned something, Carolyn. You list the chores, pay the child even though the chore was not done properly or not satisfactory. And then when the chore has been completed and is done satisfactory, up that chore, up the amount of the allowance. What does that bring? it teaches them the rewards of hard work. They say, well, I did a good job. I get compensated, more compensation for doing a good job. So something else, Carolyn, what happens when your child hits you up for the raise on that allowance?
Well,
How does that work?
Yes, well, that's a great time to help them, teach them about negotiating skills.
Exactly.
Because you can ask them questions like, when did you get your last raise? Are there is anything new that you can plan to be spending the money for?
Exactly.
And then you can also check with them to see how much of it do they plan to save, because that same proportion should still be there.
Right.
Between the spending and saving and the
Exactly.
sharing.
That's right. And how much allowance should a child receive?
Well, now that is going to depend on your values, your income, and just good old common sense.
Exactly.
Now, if the child is small, you can give them an allowance that will cover their expenditures. Now, if they're older, then they may need money to help with paying for the auto insurance,
Right.
Paying for the gas, paying
Exactly.
for their own expenditures. So it's a give and take based on the age appropriateness of the child.
Exactly. And they should understand money does not grow on trees.
Exactly.
We got a little bit more time left here. I just want to say the general recommendation that younger kids should be paid every week. That's good. But as they reach their teens, shift to either twice a month or once a month. And that will correlate with the real world when they know how to budget from using their paycheck from in intervals every 2 weeks, or they get paid monthly. So I do believe that if you want to help them shift from the weekly to the monthly or bi-weekly, I think this is a good idea. All right. Well, you know, it's about time here that we close our segment, Just Ask Freeman.com today. Carolyn and I want to encourage you to start talking to your children about money as early as 4 years old. You can do this without overemphasizing the importance of money. Thanks for watching Skills to Pay the Bills and today's segment on JustAskFreeman.com. And we look forward to seeing you next week, same time, same place. Have a great week.